All right, this meeting of the West Milwaukee School Board is now in order. Ms. Carr, would you please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Suzette, would you please call the roll?
Yes. I am starting with Mr. Sickich, who is.
I am here remotely because I'm a Zoomer.
Ms. Steele. Here. Mr. Burns.
Present.
Mr. Becker.
Here.
Mrs. Kaiser's excused tonight. Mrs. Carr. Here. Mrs. Lee. Here. Mr. Keller.
Here.
President Lee.
Here. Proper notice of this meeting has been made in accordance with the open meeting laws of the state of Wisconsin. Do you have any modifications for the agenda this evening?
No modifications.
Okay, with that, we'll move right into the superintendent's report.
Good evening. We're going to start with legislative updates. So from the state level, Act 10 literacy update, Department of Public Instruction will be posting these resources to its new webpage with information and guidance on Act 20. With Wisconsin Act 20 FAQ, 2023 Act 20 overview, and Act 20 timeline. This is all concerning the literacy updates that have been implemented through the last legislation. ESSER 2 reminder, DPI will be sending a reminder this week that ESSER 2 funds must be spent by September 30th, 2023. They're encouraging school district leaders to check on the district's ESSER 2 balance. In addition, please remember that the federal government allows for late liquidation, but late liquidation only gives districts an extension to claim on ESSER 2 funds that were spent before the deadline of September 30th of 2023. Any funds that are not spent by September 30th must be returned to the federal government and may allow elected officials to make the case that school districts are not in need of funding. So we have to make sure that we're not leaving anything on the table, and we'll be making sure that we spend everything that we have. Horace Mann, Principal Burton, wanted to send a special thank you to the Horace Mann Special Education staff. Thank you to Nicole Ostrowski, Noah Wolf, Heather Liss, Denise Whitting Stuckert, Bobby Coraggio, Mark Mallinger, Tessa Smith, and Shannon Stylo for making sure our students are supported even when we are short-staffed. Thank you for your flexibility and your intentional co-planning and co-teaching to support our students and families. So I want to personally extend a thank you as well, not only to the Horace Mann team, but to district-wide staff for special education, and encouraging anyone who would like to join Team West Milwaukee in the area of special education. We are actively looking for additional staff to fill some vacancies in that particular area where there are shortages. But I can also vouch for this particular team and having visited and seeing how they have definitely pulled things together in times of need. So thank you to Mr. Burton for submitting that. Since our last meeting, just wanted to kind of highlight a couple of things. On September 12th, attended Quadrant B Superintendent check-in meeting. Listening and learning sessions, we began those on September 13th. I see some of our parents who are here tonight. And stepping up on my call of asking them to come to board meetings. And so I appreciate that. So far, we've completed Wilson, Franklin, and Hill. This week we'll be at Mitchell on 9/26, West Milwaukee on 9/27, and Pershing on 9/28. This is a busy week for listening and learning, but I look forward to seeing the entire community come out and support the efforts as we gather more information to chart our next course of improvements for our district. September 15th, attended the Battle of the Dogs football game and cookout. I enjoyed seeing the large crowd out at the game from both sides. I do want to send a special congratulations to the Hale Huskies for taking home the trophy. It's one of the highlights of being superintendent to hand that trophy over. I can't lie, I was a little intimidated. I'm not going to use the word scared. Those are some big guys with pads on. I don't have any pads on when I handed that trophy over, and they all came running across the field at me. So my instincts was to back up a little bit, but no, but they truly deserved it. September 20th and 21st, I attended the WASDA Fall Superintendent's Conference in Madison. It was an excellent opportunity to engage with the state superintendent, specifically on the issues concerning large school districts. So she actually sat next to me and we had a pretty engaging conversation concerning some of the concerns that I've encountered from a system standpoint with DPI. And so we've agreed to work together, and hopefully she'll be visiting us really soon to continue that dialogue. September check-in meetings with board members will be commencing again this week. We're just about done. I only have a couple left to finish up, so I want to thank the board members for their flexibility and their willingness to meet with me and to just continue that dialogue. I think being a part of this ongoing conversation has allowed me to get some unique perspectives and just making sure that we align the things that we're doing with our strategic plan on a continuous basis. Today was our first professional development day for staff. And so I want to thank our leadership teams, not only at our school's central office for assisting our teachers in the learning. And just a quick reminder, employee experience and parent caregivers experience surveys have been launched on today. And so we're looking forward to collecting the data that will come out of that. So as we continue to make the needed adjustments, and it's good to always kind of do a temperature check and understand what's not going well and what do we need to improve on. So the next slide is the Battle of the Dogs. I want to thank the board members for coming out, and this was a true opportunity to serve. I love when I get to give out bratwursts and hot dogs and just have a conversation with our community. So some of the things I can definitely tell you out of this, there were several community members who came up to me and we talked about the listening and learning sessions that they had attended the previous nights. And so also them telling me, hey, I was contacted by someone today concerning my issue. That lets me know that we're definitely responding to the needs of our community in real time. I do want to announce and remind everyone that we will be having the grand opening for the Culinary Arts Center at Dockey. That's on Wednesday, the 27th. I look forward to helping cut that ribbon and then running over to our listening and learning session at West Milwaukee on that same night. So just want to quick plug for that. And the last thing, again, the listening and learning sessions, they have been just eye-opening. And I think, again, just the opportunity to engage the community, I don't think we can do that enough. And so I want to thank those parents for coming out and sharing with their neighbors the good times that they're missing. And we're hoping that our crowds are increasing as we continue this process for the next couple of weeks. So those are the updates for this week.
All right. Thank you very much. Moving on, we'll move on to item 7, or sorry. Yeah, item 7 are public comments for this evening. So if there's anyone in the audience or anyone on Zoom who would like to address the board, there should be a link if you're on Zoom to be able to sign up electronically. And then you'd be able to address the board for up to 3 minutes. And you must start by stating your name and your address. As of right now, I have no one signed up for public comments, but I'll wait for 15 seconds in case anyone joined late would like to say something. Okay, seeing no additional signups, I will close public comment at this time. And we'll move on to item 8, our board reports, starting with a review of our board calendar. So we have our today, September 25th. We have our regular Board of Education meeting. We also will be having a workshop, a financial stability and efficiency workshop on the Future Recreation Center at Lane. And then October 9th at 6 p.m. we have our regular Board of Education meeting. And then our service to our stakeholders and community workshop called About Let's Talk, the new feature we have with our website. Then October 16th at 6 p.m. we have our service to our stakeholders and community workshop Pershing Elementary School Showcase, Mitchell Elementary School Showcase, and Wilson Elementary School Showcase. And then on Monday, October 23rd at 6 p.m., we have a regular Board of Education meeting, which includes our final budget and tax levy. And then we have a financial stability and efficiency workshop. This will be our second workshop on our 2024 proposed referendum. Moving on to 8.2, our board committee reports, starting with 8.2.1, employee engagement and culture. Mr. Keller.
Thank you. The Employee Engagement and Culture Committee met last week, Tuesday, talked about a number of items. The first is our vacancies district-wide, which have dropped to just over, I believe, 4%. Special education does continue to be a challenge, as it is in every district. So we have activated a number of hiring and retention incentives for those teachers, as well as for the special education assistants, both to keep those we have and hopefully to attract others to those roles. As a district, we are also going to have a new position, a recruitment specialist. This person will be, the primary function will be to network and build and maintain relationships with potential clients. So meaning schools and things along those lines to help with kind of that flow and those relationships for student teachers and so forth. We're currently undergoing our yearly mandatory training. All the team members have until October 15th to complete their modules and are working on that. Then a safety update. Identikid is a system that provides our school offices with easy to use solution for managing visitors, volunteers, emergencies, student IDs, and more. We're in the pilot stage of that, and we'll continue to work toward rolling that out. And then finally, for training, we have, still with Identikid, we've identified a trainer for that new tool. Monthly fire drills, we're working on those now within the schools. 2 drills are required within the first 30 days of school. And we're also working on our annual preparedness checklist. That is all.
All right. Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Keller regarding his reports? Ms. Carr.
Is the recruitment specialist a full-time position?
Yes.
It is.
Yes, it's one of those positions that was approved with the reorg. So we just have not filled it yet, but it's one of the previous positions.
Has it been open and we just haven't found the right person, or are we just posting it?
We're just now posting it because we're kind of starting a new season of hiring. And it just didn't feel right to post it in the middle of the hiring season, trying to catch somebody up what we were doing. So we're trying to set everything now so we can get ready for the new hiring season. Coming in the winter.
Okay. Other questions? Or any questions to be considered at a future committee meeting? Seeing none, thank you very much, Mr. Keller. Moving on to 8.2.2, financial stability and efficiency. Mr. Burns.
Thank you. So the Financial Stability and Efficiency Committee met on Monday, September 18th. We met and discussed any and all of the feedback that surrounded the annual budget hearing for October 23rd of 2023 here. And the meeting focus will be of a draft communication and marketing plan, as well as reviewing potential facility options for us. And then we also reviewed our plan for our ESSER expenses, which this year is the final year of ESSER funds. And we also discussed our health insurance rate lock of 5.3%, which I don't know to spoil any great news, but it's pretty good considering where we could be. So some good things happening.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Burns. Any questions for Mr. Burns regarding his report?
I have a question. Well, Aaron might be able to better. Just following up about the information I gave you about the Wisconsin Public Education Network, you want to bring it to committee or consider us joining. Just want to know if we can follow up on that or.
Yeah, we can bring that back up. Yeah, I reached out to them to figure out like if there's applications, pieces like that, and haven't heard back. But we certainly bring that back up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? As far as ESSER funds go, we're in good shape as far as we have planned expenses for those. I think we had seen that previously, but I just kind of want to reiterate that for those who might be wondering if we are planning for that. So we're good on ESSER 1, 2, and 3. Well, one's gone, 2 will be gone, and 3 gone soon enough.
Yep.
All right, thank you. And any items, we already have the Wisconsin Education Network as a possible future agenda item. Anything else that anyone would like to see this committee take up in their next meeting? All right, seeing none. Thank you very much, Mr. Burns. Moving on to 8.3, board member reports of community events. Anyone who had community events who would like to mention those? I know I've seen many of you at community events, so.
Aside from the listening sessions and the football game, yeah, I made it to the West Dallas Central Open House for a little while. Listened to leadership speak and just saw a handful of questions come through and took a lap through the building just to see what the teachers were doing. So it's good to see people and back to school and ready to engage.
Very good. Any other items? Again, I'll just blankly say that a lot of us were at the Battle of the Dogs. A lot of us were at the listening sessions that were held over the last 2 weeks. So we all know that. So anything beyond that, I guess we'll say. Okay. I just want to make sure. All right. Thank you very much. And then 8.4, other updates and information items. The only thing I'm going to say is just to really encourage people for these upcoming listening sessions to attend if you can. The format is maybe different than we've had at meetings in the past. There's a brief introduction, and then there's really an interactive session where you're answering questions in live so we can get information and feedback that we then can use. And we're gathering that across all of our schools to help us in directions where we can improve, where we think we're doing well. And then there's an opportunity at the end to just have an open discussion. So any questions, concerns, things that you want to talk about, good or bad, at the school that we're at is open. So I hope that people can find some time to do that. We are going to every school, and we've done 3 already. So I hope that you can put those on your calendars at 6 to 7:30. And so I hope that you can come and attend. So I just want to encourage people to do that if you are able. Mr. Sikich wants to say something.
As a question, are those meetings being recorded or just notes taken?
They're not being recorded, Jeff. There are notes being taken, obviously, and then we have a QR code system for people to provide feedback about the questions that we're asking. But then the outside of that, if there's any questions that come up during the kind of open forum session, those are all being written down. And then if there's specific things that are being followed up on, if it's more global things, those are being taken into account. So then we can look at these things across the district and see if there's any changes or
Just
if
was
any changes
wondering.
needed for those.
Just was wondering, that's all.
Did you want to say something further, Mr. Sikich? No? Okay. All right. That's good. Okay, that's all I had for that section. So we'll move on to our consent agenda this evening, starting with 9.1, approval of our minutes from our public budget hearing and regular board education meeting on September 11th and our board workshop on September 18th. 9.2, our employment summary. 9.3, our supplementary contracts, and 9.4, our financial summary. Does anyone need anything separated out? If not, I would look for a motion.
To approve.
Second.
So moved and seconded. Any last minute discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
I,
That is a thumbs up. Opposed? All right, that passes. And then we're going to move to item 10, which is our workshop for this evening, 10.1 Future Recreation Center at Lane. Mr. Norris and Ms. Strasser, I'll wait for her to be able to get up and get settled. There's a presentation, I presume, that will be seen. Oh, yeah.
What?
Keep close to you. Okay, well, thanks for the patience there. I want to just open this up and just say thanks for having us here tonight. This has been a lot of work, and I'll hand it over to Shelley in a second to kind of go through the meat of the presentation, and then we'll hand it over to Nate to kind of bring us home and go through kind of where we're at this evening and present kind of how far we've come and kind of where we've been. So with that, I'll go through the agenda, and then as I said, I'll hand it over to Shelley. So we'll start with some introductions. So Nate, if you want to introduce yourself to the team here and kind of let them know. Yeah, you're rolling.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So Nathan Sheevy, Senior Project Manager with Growth Design Group. Been working with Shelley and the Rec Department team on both the current 68th Street project, the Phase 3 project at the current Rec Department Center, or excuse me, Rec Department location, and in our conversations related to Lane as well. So appreciate the time at the board this evening.
Welcome.
If you don't recognize Nate from all the Zoom meetings from the facility study that we conducted a few years back, Nate's no stranger to the team here. So we appreciate all of his work and time spent with Shelley, myself, and Steve Eichman on this. So
Different classes, same place.
so just for the quick agenda, we didn't want to dive too far back, but we feel like the history and kind of where we've come is important to focus on tonight to give some background, because it's been a few months since we've been here discussing this project that's been ongoing. So Shelley will talk through kind of the recreations department's mission and vision. We'll go through kind of a brief timeline of, again, how we got here tonight. We'll talk through kind of an extension from the annual meeting, the West Dallas community recreation history. How did the department end up with the school district, and talk about that. We'll talk about kind of what our goals and priorities are as an organization, and certainly as a department. I'll talk through some of the feedback Shelley's gotten from surveys, and then from the recreation side at 68th Street. Then we'll start to jump into kind of how we intend to engage the community and through intentional design. And then Nate will talk through the conceptual design renderings. We'll talk through the budget and tax levy, and then we'll discuss next steps prior to getting questions and feedback. So that's kind of the agenda. So
Would you like us to wait poll questions until the end as we go through things?
I think so. We have about a half an hour, and then we figure a half an hour of questions and things like
Just write
that.
down your questions, board members, so you don't forget some.
So with that, I'll turn it over to Shelley to start with the department mission and vision. So Shelley.
All right, thank you, Aaron. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity. So I wanted to start with our mission and values, because we recently revised our mission. And one of the things that was really clear with our team when we were working on this is we wanted to note that we are part of the school district, because that seems to be a point of confusion. We are often, almost always, referred to as Park and Rec. With now the site at 68th Street, we don't actually mind that when we do programming in the parks, but it's just we wanted to be clear. So as you can see, our mission as the Recreation Community Services team, as a department within the school district, inspires and empowers you to be an active, lifelong learner through engaging, equitable, and accessible programs, services, and opportunities that are a source of pride for our community. And one thing we wanted to talk through tonight with the board is kind of asking you to take off your education hat and sort of put on your community hat tonight as we talk through this, because we do serve, we try to serve everyone in our community, or at least have a touch point with as many people as we can through the programs and services we offer. So our values, these have been recently updated as well, and you can see our logo of Rec Effect. So that's what we want to do. We want to make and have an effect. The E is equity. In both our programs and within our staff. One thing we're working really hard on is making sure that our staff is reflective of those that we serve. Fostering relationships, focus on healthy lifestyles. We always want to exceed expectations, and we're doing that by putting community first. And the other thing that we talked a lot about was that it was important to honor and respect kind of how we got here and the traditions that have been created in our community, but also looking forward to the future. So how did we kind of get to where we're at tonight in Lane? In June of 2020, the board approved the consolidation of not only Lane, but Longfellow and Madison.
And that's when conversations kind of really started happening around Lane. And when our department really started to express interest in kind of what's happening with the space. And as many of you know, a big focus on the gym that is there. That is one of the only air-conditioned wood floor spaces we have. So our department really wanted to focus on kind of how do we preserve that. So then in September, we presented an option to the board to lease Lane for the purpose of creating a West Side Recreation and Fitness Center. In October, we held a community information session right at Lane and shared our proposal to lease Lane, and then also just some ideas on what we thought we could include and incorporate, and then also to gather some ideas from not only those that live in the area, but anybody that had an interest. Also then in October, shortly thereafter, the board approved our leasing of Lane and for the sole purpose of creating a West Side Community Center. This past March 2023, our board approved our hiring of CG Schmidt and Growth Design Group to work on now moving forward with the renovation and conversion of Lane to a recreation and fitness center. And then since past May, we've been planning, we meet bi-weekly and have been tweaking and discussing and working through budget, and we'll share that with you tonight, our plans that we have to date. So a little bit of history. I know this did come up at our budget hearing, a meeting like, why or how did this ever happen? Like, why is recreation part of the education in the school district? So in 1934, and if you want to do the math, 2024 will be turning 90 years old. So you'll be seeing some stuff around that. But that I think too is really important to point out that recreation programming, organized, structured, staff has been in our community for a very long time. And it was then Superintendent Harry Nash, who recognized the importance of recreation and organized recreation and created a recreation department. Any history I could find didn't really reference conversations with city or how that really took place. It's kind of the information that we have. Fred Zirkle was the first recreation director, and he actually was at the time a FIAD teacher. And another little side note for those that don't know, the baseball field at McCarty Park is actually named after Fred Zirkle. As you know, our offices have bounced around. Originally, they started at then was the Central High School. So that's not the current Central High School, was whatever the Central High School was in 1934. Moved to the property where we're currently at now, but that building had a fire. When that happened, then they moved to the administration center. And then in the 80s, a new rec center. So we've been all over. We've been at Parkway, we've been here, 4th floor, 1st floor, now at 68th Street. And then, so some of the first activities, and that's, I think, important, because I'll talk about it in the next slide, that were started out, that they, were needed at that time. And they noticed ice skating used to be huge, and outdoor public ice skating. And to the point where, as some of you may know, our district and our community is home to a few Olympic speed skaters. So that was huge. A lot of sports, basketball, softball. As you can see, we've evolved because I don't see soccer, I don't see volleyball, I don't see golf. But so over the 90 years, we've grown social centers, summer day camp, and something they called knothole events. I tried to do a lot of research. I could not really find what knothole events were, other than knotholes are like knots in wood. So I don't know if it was washers, some beanbag toss, those types of
If
things.
anyone knows, please email us.
Yeah.
So.
And kind of brings us, sort of full circle to where we're at today. So years ago, the district made a commitment to building spaces that were dedicated for recreation. In our community, we call them field houses. In modern day now, if you mention the word field house, people are like, oh, like a big giant gymnasium. Well, that's not really what our field houses were. Our field houses were small classrooms, standalone buildings, some reference points. The little building at the back of the property at Jefferson was a field house. Hoover, Irving, Mitchell had rooms that were dedicated solely to rec, and those were field houses. Well, over the years, education needs have changed, school needs have changed. we no longer really are operating in many of those spaces. And most recently, Irving, this year needed that space, so we had to move all our parent-child classes. So there really is a need. We've outgrown 68th Street, so there really is a need to expand, to have more offerings.
And I think it's important to, Shelley and I have been talking about this, like one of the questions we had was, if our district's blueprint hasn't changed and our enrollments declined, why a need for more space? And I think Shelley articulated that beautifully. Is the answer is because the kids and the needs of the kids have changed. And so as enrollments have shifted, schools have used those buildings to maximize space to create the best environment they can for kids, because we know there's a cost to that. And so what better way to use the school is to use every part of it. And so Shelley over the years has hit it on the head. They've had to shift programming to meet the needs of the community because the school is doing the same thing to meet the needs of the kids. I think it's just important to talk about that because it's just the reality. And so Irving is the latest of that because they've seen increased needs in special education. So they're finding spaces to meet the needs of those kids and bring on different, OTs and PTs and speech to do those things. So I think it's just something to note because so it's a question we had and we talked about it. And it was like, how can we describe that? I think that's the best way to describe that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And also along with that is, we've now fully seen the impact of being able to have space where you can have programs during the day. We never had that opportunity before because there's students in our buildings during the day. Now having the rec center where we can, we have preschool, we have senior fitness, we have our adult day program all in one space, and just the interaction that goes on, it'll be neat to be able to replicate that as well. I wanted to just touch base a little bit on, so, a lot of people are just talk Fund 80. What is that? There are literally hundreds of school districts that levy Fund 80, but very, very few of them do it for the sole purpose of community ed and recreation. They may have one little program here or something, one service there, but there's about 30 or so of us in the state that are true recreation departments operating under the auspices of a school district. And there are some communities that have both school district rec and municipal rec. So it's almost a double, but there too, a lot of it's more on the park side, on the municipal side. But some of them you can see Milwaukee Public Schools, Madison, Racine. Those are the kind of the top players in our, our field here. And then us, Wauwatosa, Oshkosh, Sheboygan, and then there's a few smaller ones. But really heavily saturated in southeastern Wisconsin. So what are our goals and priorities within our department? Our main goal is what we refer to as being a community wellness hub. And what does that mean? That means we want to be the gathering place and space for community, where all can turn to for essential programs and services and spaces that will advance health equity, improve health outcomes, and enhance quality of life on an individual's terms. And whatever that means for them. I just kind of find it interesting, the timing of all this. The governor has recently created a task force to address childhood obesity in our state. And obesity overall, because it has become such a large epidemic, and they're seeing the health impacts it has. So we're kind of keeping an eye on that and pulse on that and see what will that mean for us. So our priority areas in creating this hub are to focus on physical fitness, providing safe and conducive spaces for physical activity and athletics. Intellectual, provide programs that support enrichment and lifelong learning along with early learning. We oftentimes are the family's first experiences before they come to school. We see them first. Environmental, green spaces and places to play. If you haven't been to the rec center lately, I'd highly encourage you to. We have an outdoor garden. We have kind of a healing garden, just a place with flowers and benches. We also have the playground. And then just some green space. And so we're excited to do something not exactly like that. We do have some ideas, but things that we could replicate over on the west side as well. Emotional programs that support social and emotional learning, mindfulness, and connecting people either to behavioral health or connecting people to each other. Cultural opportunities for community events and celebrations, arts programs. I think you've seen that recently with our youth theater. It's just growing, and I've mentioned we're expanding, so that'll be down now in the elementary, serving elementary kids as well. Social programs and spaces that are welcoming, inclusive, and provide social connections that help to build community. And then lastly, one of our areas of priorities is also economic. We do create jobs, and we also create a number of jobs for our youngest employees in our communities. Oftentimes we are some of our community members' first jobs, and it's a learning experience. We recently had a family come over, and we create documents. What do you all need in order to even start? What do you need in order to get paid? That whole thing's a learning process, and then connecting them to oftentimes they maybe don't no longer have their birth certificate or their social security card, and where do you go to get that, and how can we help you? Those type of things. And then also just resources that support our families through open gyms, places for our non-school day camps. Our schools are great, but our schools are created to be schools, not to be places for recreation, kind of somewhat with the exception of the gym and an auditorium for theater. So that's really what we're looking to create or recreate again.
It is one of the things that I always love whenever we have like time at the rec center during the day, to hit on Shelley's point, is it's such a cool experience to go to the rec center during the day and see kids as early as 3 years old, to see some of the adult students that we have working there, and then see our seniors, citizens coming for classes. Like you can't leave there but go, this is a great space for the community, and it's used. And so I just I appreciate all your work on that, Shelley. It's just something to note. If you haven't had a chance to go and see that in action, it's really great to see.
So what are our participants saying? So at the end of every season, fall, winter, spring, and then summer, we send out a survey to anybody and everybody that's taken a class during that session. And we pretty much ask them 4 simple questions. The survey probably takes them less than a minute to complete. But from that, 90% of the people that respond are either satisfied to extremely satisfied with the programs we offer. 97.5% are satisfied to extremely satisfied with the level of customer service our staff provides. And 99% of those that respond find our programs and services to be valuable to extremely valuable to quality of life in the community. And I think that really is important, and to share that the people that are taking our programs are telling us, yes, we want this in our community and we value it. We also give them an opportunity, sort of open-ended. If they answered no or not satisfied or any of those things, to share with us. And we most recently added an opportunity for them to leave either email address or phone number, and we'll follow up with them to have more dialogue. But some common themes we've been seeing over the last several have been offering programs closer to home where people live. I guess we didn't necessarily realize, but we have a number of kids that will walk to our programs. So when we can offer babysitting classes, or, even some of our workshops, if they're near a kid's home, they will walk. And that we want them to be also accessible. So bus routes. Lane is very accessible via bus. So the other thing we're hearing is they want clean and modern facilities. And I put this on here because we compete. I don't think people often realize that, but we're competing with other industries and other service providers in the community, some that are nonprofit, but some that are for profit as well, and may have just for, accessing. So, when we look at prime examples are fitness classes. You can go to places like Avasa, a Princeton club. Why would they want to come here, right? And I'll use like a Jefferson gym as an example. Small, no air conditioning, tile floor, not most conducive to somebody that wants to do a high impact fitness class. So in order for us to stay relevant and provide services that we really strive to make as affordable as possible, we got to have the facilities to do that. So as an extension of our goals and our design, we're really being intentional in the planning of this new center. And one is we're making a commitment to provide, as I kind of keep saying this, but I'll continue to, accessible and equitable space for everyone. And continuing, what does that look like to our community members, not just to us, but to community members. A commitment to support our athletic programs. We have to have places and spaces where our kids can practice. And this is, I'll say 4K all the way up through high school, because there's oftentimes our high school teams are, displaced because, well, if there's a gymnastics meet at Hale in the gym, the basketball team's not practicing. If there's a wrestling meet, the basketball team may not be able to practice. So having some offsite places that are conducive for them as well. Commitment to just spaces that are like classroom style for kids and adults. A commitment to ongoing adult education. There's a vast array of programs that we'd like to do. We just don't have the space to do. So we're hoping this will be able to provide that for us. We're going to continue to stay committed to health and wellness and have affordable community options, right? That's something that's come up. Fitness. Why do you need fitness? Well, when we look at the demographics of the kids in our community, and you look at what does it cost to be a member of some of the private organizations that are out there, a lot of our families can't, right? I can look like if they could, they would, but they can't. So providing more affordable fitness opportunities, and Aaron and I were just talking about this earlier too. When we look at some of our students, not every student that is concerned about their physical fitness is necessarily involved in athletics. So where do they go to work out? Like where do they have a space that they can, exercise in doing something that they want to do, whether it's on equipment or taking a Zumba class or things like that. So this will also provide opportunities, not just for adults, but for kids as well. And then a commitment to providing intentional space, partnering with our school board and community develop a board of education room. And I don't know if you want to touch on this.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we thought we'd kind of spell out what the short-term and long-term plans are here that we've kind of been engaging with. So given that we're in the stages of development here that we're talking about tonight, certainly with growth design around the recreation center lane, the short-term plan, given a few reasons, so I'll go through here, is to have the boardroom remain here on the 6th floor for one additional year until the build out of the Lane Recreation Center is completed. A few of the reasons are, one, during our analysis, the cost to move to one of our existing buildings is comparable to a one-year lease extension. Two, with construction plans at 93rd Street, it'll allow our students in our tech program to have consistent instruction and allow them to remain in the space they're currently in through at a minimum the end of the school year. And lastly, our current boardroom is designed and equipped. And what I mean by that is it's designed and equipped with technology, it's designed and equipped from safety aspects, and the space is intentionally used throughout the school district for professional development in spaces that our district uses currently. So for those reasons, that's the short-term plan. Long-term, as Shelley's discussed here, or we'll talk through in a minute, is we're planning to have the boardroom and the development piece embedded into the Lane Recreation Center, into the new existing portion of the building. And we really feel like having that in the rec center will make it even more accessible and transparent to the community. A community recreation center, a community center, by that means that's open to the board and has the, classes and things like that where the community feels comfortable to go there. To me, that's the perfect place to have something like this. So that's currently the thinking. Anything to add to that, Shelley?
No, I think you explain. Yeah, we just think it provides an opportunity. Like here, there's nothing else going on. People don't necessarily see you, if they're coming here, it's for only that. Whereas having you as a partner in our space right at a rec center, there's people coming and going. They'll be, we'll be able to share maybe more information with those that we normally don't reach just by them physically being in that space. So yes,
Yeah. And it's certainly been a focus of Dr. Robinson, ourselves, our administration, certainly you at these listening and learning sessions, families here this evening. We want families to come and engage, and we want to do what we can to reach people on their platform that they use, whether that's social media, whether that's the Now, whether that's district newsletter, whether that's the community recreation center. We need to reach people where they're at. And so I think this is a great avenue to do that. And I feel this is a really good plan, short and long term, from the district's our perspective, both fiscally, but also like the right thing. So with that, I think we can move on.
Yeah.
Okay.
So now comes the exciting part. And I'm going to turn it over to to Nathan, and Nathan's gonna walk us through kind of some conceptual plans, exteriors, interiors. And you know, as no mention, if you have questions as we go through, write them down and we'll answer them then at the end.
Right, so great. So a handful of different images that we have for the board this evening. We're going to start on the biggest scale and then work slightly smaller scale as well. So as I said on the previous, the section slide here, these are conceptual renderings. So we have not gone to the stage of starting construction documents or specifically engaging with structural engineers or mechanical, electrical, or plumbing engineers. We have had some dialogue with them, conceptual dialogue. So I think everything that we are proposing is possible, is feasible. You see, we have costs that we've gathered as well. That'll be part of the presentation on some later slides. To orient the group here, so the lane site, Highway 100 to the top of this image, 109th Street on the bottom of this image. So north is to the left, and then Greenfield is to the right. What you can see here is that in the longest term master plan, the rec department has proposed demolition of approximately the south 2/3 of the existing building, and those would be the two oldest portions, the middle bit being the original building, about the third of the building to the south being a slightly later addition, but we're talking like 1950s, 1960s, that portion of the building was built. And then the third that we're proposing to maintain of the existing building on the north side is a much later construction. So constructed in approximately 2008, I want to even say something like that.
Portion, yeah.
Yep, the newest portion of the building. So that's what you're seeing on the screen here. And then, and again, in this master plan, which we'll see more detail in the floor plan views, you see there's two of the orange peach shapes kind of in the middle of the building. And those are future additions that we are proposing. And you'll see kind of what's included in each one of those and what we're proposing to be included in the remainder of the existing building as well.
And then just to mention the section here at the most right of the screen is kind of at this time, pending feedback from the board tonight, is the portion that we feel may be the section that at this time we don't feel needs to be used by the recreation department, and something to consider for potentially putting that potentially out for sale. And that could go on the tax rolls if the plans this evening are proposed or review, things like that. So at this point, that's kind of that yellow section on the far right towards Greenfield there. So I think there'll be more to discuss in that later in the presentation. So
if I can go back to the site images for a second, Aaron, because this is more recent information that we received from the city of West Allis as part of our conversations. Madison, do I have that street right? Shelley, is that there? So Madison is the street just to the south. Yep, that runs east-west, but up and down on this image. But we have been made aware that the city is considering, no formal proposal, no engineering has happened related to that yet, but considering either reconnecting or extending Madison to connect to Highway 100. And so this proposal here, by demolishing what we are proposing for existing lane, and then the longest term master plan only suggesting additions, future additions to the point south where we wouldn't be impacting that extension. I think it's something to consider as well. It changes the impact of the available parcel that would potentially be sold if there is a public right of way in that location that the city of West Allis establishes. But in many ways, I think incentivizes the opportunity for a developer to be thinking about the yellow portion or the yellow parcel that we're identifying here, as well as some of the other parcels further to the south between here and Greenfield Avenue. So moving into the floor plan here, these are small on the screen. The text is very small on the screen, not expecting the group to be able to read any of this. But what it does show is this is both the first floor of that north third of the building that we were talking about. So the first floor is on the right side of this image where you can see the gymnasium space, as well as the existing parking stalls on the bottom of that portion. And then the second floor is on the left side of this image. I think the key thing to understand in this diagram is the coloring that's included. So the gray tones in like the gymnasium, locker room spaces, the prior main office, all are in good shape, and we're proposing very minimal to zero renovation within those spaces. You'll see there's a subsequent diagram that the CG Schmidt team put together, noting where heavy renovation, light renovation, and basically no renovation would be included within the building. And here on the second floor is where we're proposing a series of heavy renovations. So those are the green colors that are showing up on the screen here. And then basically every classroom space exists, or excuse me, every prior classroom space, what will be future either parent-child spaces or multi-purpose fitness programming spaces for the rec department would contain some level of renovation, either finish-only renovation, so a light renovation, or in the areas of green, a heavier renovation where we're either removing walls or removing sinks and casework related to the existing science classroom. And I believe this was a discussion that the board had in one of your prior conversations, but also an area within the second floor here of heavy renovation to create the boardroom that both Shelley and Aaron referenced. So that's a larger meeting room space, 2 large group conference rooms, some dedicated support space, dedicated AV space, and then kind of a waiting entrance room area as well related to that board suite.
To provide some context, just to kind of dive a little bit deeper into the estimated cost, around 2.5 million is essentially demolition and abatement of the old space at Lane. And that gives you some context to how old the site is, the work that goes into removal of things. And that includes abatement, like I mentioned. So that's just to give you context, like over half that is just getting rid of the old section. So just thought I'd mention that.
Yeah, significant considerations, Aaron, as well, the way you talk about that. Existing main boilers, existing main water service is within the portion of the building that we're proposing to be demolished. It's in the original portion of the building in the basement, which is a very interesting space, not the funnest space, if you ever have a chance to visit the basement of Lane. But with the proposed demolition of that area, we need to find new spots for boilers and certain pieces of mechanical equipment. I think the north third of the building is fairly well set up. It does have its own electrical service. It is the location for the fire protection riser, so the sprinkler system within the north third of the building. So there's a lot of good mechanical space within that north third, but some additional mechanical space that we'll need to identify as well.
So we've called that phase 0, just to have some phase development to each piece here. So phase 1 we'll jump into now.
Yep. So phase 1, you'll see we're only looking at the first floor here now, because nothing would be proposed as either a 2-story addition or no additional renovation on the second floor of the existing building to remain in our future phases. So what you can see on the screen here is the existing gymnasium and that north third of the building on the left side. The yellow area is the proposed addition for what would be anchored by a fitness center in phase 1. And then what used to be, I'm switching up the colors on you, but what used to be the yellow additional parcel that was identified on the site plan or the aerial is now that gray just off, not exactly a square or rectangle piece on the far right side of the image. So as Aaron mentioned, that's the parcel that we're not proposing a specific rec department use for and could be up for future consideration with the board. So as I mentioned, the area here, fitness center anchoring this space, and that would be fairly close to fitness center area itself within the addition. Close to Highway 100, we'll see the opportunities for some natural light and some signage opportunities in our exterior renderings as well. And then support spaces, so a new entrance, some additional mechanical space, staff offices, as well as janitor's closet, data room, and changing rooms within this addition as well. And then the second phase or the final phase of addition that we're proposing within the master plan would consider a warm water pool. So this would not be sized for lap swimming. It would not be sized for diving, but would be a consideration, basically an alternate body of water, an alternate pool that does not exist within the district to date. In our conversations with Shelley and other rec department staff, they've also identified a pretty specific, I think, amenity that they are interested in including in this phase, and it's a walking pool. So what that considers is basically a shallow depth pool, right? Maybe 3 or 4 feet, enough to be a little higher than your waist. And a small circuit, so you can have kind of low impact cardio within that space. So I guess a different type of lap pool, but walking around a portion of the pool as opposed to a swimming stroke within the pool. The other areas within this phase 2 proposed addition would be a lobby space, kind of a community gathering, if it's for events, birthday parties, if it's for parents or guardians to be within while they have a student taking a swimming class, an area, kind of a waiting area as well. And then additional support spaces, as I think many of the board members might understand. Pools themselves carry a lot of baggage, and by that I mean a lot of mechanical baggage. So specific pumps and heaters and chlorine and chemicals and all that good stuff. So there are specific mechanical spaces that we are suggesting, pool mechanical, chemical spaces as well, programming spaces, both for the rec department and for other swim classes, as well as changing rooms, multi-stall toilet rooms, and then some staff office and meeting space as well within this addition. Now we're going to, I guess, dive into the next layer of detail that I talked about. So a series of exterior renderings. We've got 3 from the northeast and then 3 from the southeast. So kind of view 1 as you would be headed south on Highway 100. And then the second views that we'll be looking at as you'd be headed north on Highway 100. So phase 0 here, demolishing the portion of the existing building, just that farthest right area to remain. Here, showing what phase 1 would look like added to the existing building. So the fitness center is what you see here. No specific glass that would look to Highway 100 that would provide a vision out or vision in, because if you're working out, you may not be in the best condition wanting to show off to everyone driving down Highway 100. But a key opportunity, this facing east, to bring a lot of natural light within that space. So a slightly taller space, not as tall as the existing gymnasium or any new gymnasium that we would propose, but approximately 16, 18 feet clear within that fitness center space. And then the last phase, you see that popping up on the far left side of this image, the pool support spaces, and then the warm water and walking pool there as well. Again, not providing a vision in or out specifically, but large areas of glass within the pool space as well. Shifting, so again, this is kind of as you're on Mayfair headed north. So first image was phase 0, second was adding fitness center, and then the third would be the addition of the gymnasium. A couple of precedent images that we were able to gather. So these largely came from Shelley and rec department staff making visits to area facilities. These all focus largely on public facilities. There are a couple of non-area examples that were just precedent images from the internet. But you saw a couple area fitness centers here, Greenfield School District as well. And then looking at some pool spaces. So none of these images are exactly what we're considering at Lane. Like you see here, this includes a lap pool on the left, but the warm water pool on the right. But a visual of kind of what those large windows within the pool space might create the interior view look at. Again, here, not exactly what we're looking at, but the height I think is very applicable, as well as the deck space around the pool. What you're seeing in the foreground is a lap pool, the warm water pool is in the background of this image. And then a couple views of the walking pool. So I did my best to describe that. I think a better visual here that you can see kind of a circuit, a large oval in some ways with a bulkhead in the middle, and then an area to circulate around in that walking pool as well. So that's this image, and then the next one as well. And here, Aaron, I don't know if you want to talk to any of these specifics, or I know the CG Schmidt team isn't formally represented tonight, but we had a lot of really good dialogue at our last core team meeting where CG Schmidt presented this information. And again, These numbers are very small on the screen, so I think there's some information that Shelley is passing around the board table as well for you to see these numbers. But the detail, this budget summary page that you see here is specific to phase one. So the four different lines of demolition and renovation that would be required to complete that phase. Demolition line, Aaron, as you mentioned, total project cost would be on the far right side of the spreadsheet. So that's the $2.3 to $2.4 million. Heavy remodel would include the green areas on the second floor. So creation of the multi-purpose rooms, as well as the creation of the boardroom, totaling approximately $1.4 to $1.5 million total project cost estimate. Toilet room remodels, and so this would be specifically for the 2 pairs of multi-stall toilet rooms that are in the upper right of the existing building in that image, if you can imagine. So formally, they would be directly adjacent to, or kind of in the corner between the gymnasium and the prior main office, if you can kind of envision those spaces. The toilet rooms that are closest to Highway 100 in the existing portion of the building would remain. So there's male and female bathroom on the first floor, same thing on the second floor. This toilet room model would consider a light renovation within those spaces. So those are fully ADA accessible, so we wouldn't need to move plumbing fixtures, but updating plumbing fixtures and updating finishes within those bathroom spaces. And then the light remodel that you see, that line as well, the last of the 4 lines on this page, would represent light renovation, so finish updates to some of the classroom and multi-purpose areas on the second floor, as well as the hallways and circulation areas on both the first floor and the second floor. Main goal there is to update the look of those spaces, as well as align the branding to be appropriate to the rec department, kind of moving away from Lane Patriots and more to the rec department and their colors and style and logos. So the detail here, again, that you see on this page that was just handed out, again, is specific to phase 0, but it shows more of the individual trades that are involved in each of the phases that we mentioned. So as you can see, if we look specifically at the light remodel line, you can see that it does not include any considerations for the exterior of the building, although that stays the same. Does not specifically consider any like plumbing system updates or fire protection updates, because they're not needed in that light remodeled area. But it does consider flooring finishes, some wall finishes and painting, some new ceilings, and then some minor modifications to electrical systems and heating and cooling systems that might be needed as kind of you're taking out the ceiling and putting it back in. Last image that we'll put on the screen for the group, floor plan image here should look similar to the full master plan, the floor plan images that we were looking at, but does represent just some takeoff information for what CG Schmidt was looking at. So the lightest blue areas, like the gymnasium space, existing gym, existing locker room space, existing main office, as we discussed previously, basically no work or very minimal work within those spaces. The orange or peach, as CG Schmidt team has highlighted it here, would be our light renovation areas within the corridors on the first and second floor, as well as a small series of classrooms, kind of 4.5, if you count them, within the second floor space. And then the red or dark red areas on the second floor would be our heavy remodel areas as well, within phase 0. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Aaron and Shelley for our last couple slides.
Yeah. So just to kind of go through like the recreation levy and the history behind that, I think there's a couple things to note that I want to just focus on. So on the left, you can see kind of the Fund 80 levy history. So dating back, and I could have went further back than 1718, the levy had been set, and for the most part, had not changed since off $3 million for the longest time. But a couple of things I want to just mention. So as programming is invested in and communicated and grows, so does revenue. And so a good example, and I mentioned it on the third bullet, is that Shelley's been able to increase programming through the 68th Street Recreation Department. So as they've offered more programming, they're also able to generate more revenue. Hence why Shelley is able to have more programs, more staff, but also have a levy not changed since 1920. That's when that building was finished in June of 2020. So a number of districts that have Fund 80 levies do the same thing. They make an initial investment and then they're able to pull levies back because they're seeing more programming being utilized and therefore more revenue generated. So I just wanted to mention that. So that's currently where things are at. So we've been able to from last year to this year, the projection of the levy maintains the taxpayers' commitment to this project as a flat from the prior year to this year. So meaning in 2020 or in 21-22 to 22-23, taxpayers saw no change. In fact, actually a slight decrease in their taxes to the school district. And the same is going to be true for 2024. So I feel like having and being committed to that is really important. And a number of districts, and Shelley can speak to this more directly, that have built and invested in these things have taken out loans from 80 from the community to do that. And so that's not been our prerogative or our recommendation to you all, is that we should do this by keeping the community in mind because it's important. So anything to add to that, Shelley?
Yeah, I guess I would use our neighbors to the west, New Berlin, because they're in the process. Actually, they're in their phase 2 of their community recreation center. And I know their director, when been having some conversations, that's all borrowed money. So that's all taken out via loans. Where I'm really proud that our projects are with monies we already have. We're not borrowing and we're not increasing any cost, to our taxpayers' levies.
Yeah. So just in my opinion, what a better way to service the community by saying this is going to cost you no more than it's cost you, and by offering a service to the community that we don't have. So to me, that's what partnerships look like, and that's what our job is, I think, in being community partners with them. So I guess I'll jump to next steps, and then we'll take questions and dialogue from the board. So obviously tonight we're here for our second workshop on the recreation center, our first being the approval and the process to go through that. September 27th is the City of West Dallas Plan Commission for the vote on rezoning. And then the 17th of October is City of West Dallas Common Council vote on rezoning as well. The 23rd is tied to our formal budget approval adoption, which will certify the levy for the school district as well as the Fund 80 levy. And that information is still forthcoming as the certification comes through from the state, as well as equalized property values. Look forward to seeing that in the next few weeks. November and February, Gross, CG Schmidt, and also more collaboratively to submit designs to the City of West Dallas plan review and approval and conditional approval to obtain permits for phase 0 and 1. And then summer of 24 board workshop number 3 on phase 2, the Community Recreation Fitness Center. And really the reason that that's drawn out is due to the levy process I just mentioned, is that if you go back, the amount of dollars it takes to do 0, 1, and 2 to get you from conceptual design, demolition, renovation, all the way to the conclusion of the design and implementation and build out of phase 2, the fitness center, requires more levy dollars than we currently have planned for last year and this year. It would take an additional year to do that. Hence why those specific plans are not here tonight, because that's not out for a year from now. So that makes sense.
Just want to note, so with Wednesday's plan commission, they'll be voting on rezoning. That's the step. And this was a little bit of an unusual project because we've already been to plan commission once, informational. They went to common council once, informational. Now we're going back for the actual vote. But the development office has been great to work with at common council. They've even, and actually at plan commission, has sort of used this project as potential sort of the
Catalyst.
the catalyst. This is where they're using the catalyst to spark redevelopment of the Highway 100 corridor. So they're really looking at, and that's part of long range plans for the city, is revitalizing, Highway 100 and specifically kind of in that general area. So, we've already started talking about a number of different things and the possibilities and what could all happen there. This is, first we got to get plan commission to vote to rezone, because it's zoned as a school. So they'll rezone it to a commercial. And then, even be able to do that, we had to have alderperson sponsor it. We have support, from some of the other people. And then if it passes, there will go to, common council. And I just mentioned that because if there's any hiccups kind of there, we'll be coming back to the drawing board and having sort of some discussions. But those conversations have really been productive and positive. So feeling pretty good about that.
I would agree.
And one very minor clarification, Shelley. The current zoning for Lane is technically one of the city of West Allis's residential zonings. Schools are permitted, allowed, I can't remember exactly what their language is, but the school was fully functional under the prior school, Lane Intermediate, fully functional under the residential zoning that the parcel is right now. Rec facilities, both indoor and or outdoor, are not specifically allowed. It's a quirk of their ordinance, the city of West Allis, not specifically allowed within that residential zoning. But again, the parcel being directly adjacent to the Highway 100 corridor, we've had this conversation with the city of West Allis. That parcel being residential zoning always felt a little funny or awkward anyway. In the long-term vision that the city of West Allis has for the Highway 100 corridor, much more appropriate for the parcel to be considered commercial, both for the rec center use and for any future use, any future developer to be exploring the parcels as well.
So I think with that, that is the conclusion of our presentation. So we take questions or thoughts or feedback at this time.
Any questions from the board members? Mr. Sikich.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay, I just wanted to add, fill in the gap kind of thing with Shelley's presentation of the history of the rec department. Believe it or not, if you look at the screen, I'm a knot-holer. She wasn't sure what the knothole is. That was a group when the Braves were here, and we had boys clubs and girls clubs at all our elementary school. You join that and you could go to a Braves game and get in free, regardless of what school you went. So that is what the knothole club was about. And I just want to say, I love the presentation. I love the work you guys put into it. And you haven't asked me, but I'm behind it.
I love it.
$1 question has been answered.
We'll have to bring that back in the program.
Yeah.
Gotta come full circle with that.
They'll pick it up. Yeah. Ms. Carr?
Well, I'll start off by saying that I'm a big supporter of the rec department. My 4 grown children use the rec department. My son worked at the rec department under your lead. I was an aerobics instructor at the rec department for many, many years. And I made lifelong friends through it. And I do believe that it builds community, and at all of the goals that you set, I think we've already achieved, and I'm just so excited to see it progress to bigger and better. Couple of questions. So, and you might have answered this, forgive me, but that staff development space, we use this room for more than just a boardroom. And we're going to move the boardroom to that new space. But what about that staff development space that we use this for, or leadership space? Remember, we didn't have enough room at 93rd Street. So will there be a space for that?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question, Jane. And I don't think we dove that deep. So thanks for asking that. So yeah, the 93rd Street renovation, if you can go back. So that was the old home of the district office. And I don't have the years in my head, but for those of you who can recall that. So the big change there, again, if the question in your head or anyone listening is, well, why isn't there space for the boardroom and the PD center there? Well, when the boardroom was there prior to the move here, there was not a wellness clinic for staff and for that piece. So the space there is limited in the renovation to solely hold the offices for the district staff. So the space we use this for, you're exactly right. It's for the boardroom, certainly, but then week to week, month to month. It hosts a number of activities for teachers, development space, trainings, ongoing PD like that. So the space you referenced that Lane will be able to use as a district development center as well.
Okay.
So
We actually should end up having more space, not only with Doro Hall, that's currently the rec center. And then the addition of the 2 multi-purpose spaces that we're putting on 68th Street. And then the addition of Lane, there will be some larger spaces. So that hopefully should help even further support PD in the district.
Also, so I just was wondering, and again, I don't want to get too far ahead, but I was a little excited with the 5-year plan of this. Remember when you talked about, you had talked about the no depth pool and that was like a phase 2 and then, but you talked about the playground and the adaptive playground. And is that coming down the pike? Just give me, are we continuing that line of thinking and we're just going to get that later?
Yeah, because
Okay.
so it's been interesting, and Aaron and I keep talking, like, all these things keep happening and developing and different, like. The city approached us with, potentially running the road through there. We've had conversations with the city of, would there be future potential for development for some housing? And then we started talking about, well, wait a minute, maybe that could be something that the district and the city could partner on. And is that potential housing for new teachers? We've talked about in that green space that maybe
Or
there's.
district daycare. Oh, did I say that?
Well, so the green space, like, what are we gonna do with that green space? Yeah, the playground equipment that's there is very outdated.
Right.
Or do we look at, could it be more of like a small amphitheater? You're already right there on Highway 100 where there's, it's already kind of noisy and busy. So, within obviously city ordinances, would that be a place where you could do small outdoor music performances? Some community members share the possibility for that undeveloped piece of land of creating, and I don't know, maybe some of you've seen, they use old like railroad storage cars, like big containers, metal, like those are now kind of the thing, and they're popping up either like small businesses,
Interesting.
food and beverage, and his idea was like, hey, could that be an incubator for potentially some of our student-run businesses and community member small business?
Sure.
Like, well, this, then we got a call from the daycare across the street who needs more space, but they need space for infants, so we're like, oh, well, right now that's kind of not part of the plan, but then her and I started talking like, well, interesting that you call me, because one of the things that we've kind of been talking about in the district, is there a way to help support district staff? So her and I are going to stay in communication with each other. So, it's igniting more and more different ideas, and some things that, back when we had that listening session, maybe didn't even think of. But I guess I want to caution the board. We got a lot of great ideas, but they're all going to cost money. So I think it's, once we kind of know what we're looking at in budget prioritizing and what is it that we really want.
and I think that's the benefit. And, we've talked a lot too about like projects, renovation projects are typically not done like this. They're typically done with, you have the money to do it, you do it, or you take out a loan, you do it, not done in phases like this. But that's us, I think, our partnership with certainly the administration, the school board, and the community to be as fiscal stewards as we can to manage this as best we can. So the benefit of that is for this, your exact point, James, because as we go through and we go phase 0, then phase 1, like we can keep vetting these out with you guys and talking that through. Maybe phase 3 becomes too expensive and we want to focus efforts on, like, things can change. I think that's the benefit of at least moving slow, is that we can keep the dialogue going and, check those phases off as we go, and they can change as we come. So I think that's a benefit of that. So.
Yeah. And I mean, things we found, I will say, working with Growth and CG Schmidt, both of all the projects we've done so far have come in under budget, which has been great, because then that has a lot of funds available to put towards the next project. So, even since we built and started at the rec center, we added the garage, we added the playground. Now we're adding 2 large multi-purpose, all using, fund balance and additional dollars that we generated through revenue. So our hope in that plan would be we do the same at Lane, right? We get there, we start programming, we can invest additional funds as we go along.
So I'm gonna take that as a stay tuned. Excited to stay tuned. Okay. Thank you. That's all for me.
Other questions? Steele, you're good?
I heard this part of this presentation at the Common Council, so
Okay.
I think I'm good.
Mr. Becker?
I'm with Mrs. Deal. I've heard it.
Miss Lee?
I'm good. I hear a lot of it from, I'm on committee with Shelley, so I
Okay.
hear good chunks of it there too, so.
Everyone gets a chance. Mr. Burns?
I'm good.
Mr. Keller?
I'm good.
I'm the only one that's okay. So for the space, the boardroom space, we talked about use for PD. But that space would also be available to the community as well, at times that we weren't using it, right? So, I mean, having it in a community recreation center, even though we would be regularly using it for board events and as well as for other district meetings and things like that we would need to do, when it wasn't being used for those purposes, it would be available for other people to rent out basically, if they had a meeting that they wanted to have there, or, you know, that might be a good space to have, like host like community movie nights where you could, like, if there's a screen that we could, bigger screen in that space that you could project and then have, you know, have people come and watch a movie if they want to. So
Yeah,
What's
birthday
that?
parties where they're renting out the maker space and they can use the room across the hall and, you know, things like that. Parents could be in there. I mean, you know, there's a endless number of ideas, given that we only use this space X number of nights a month and the district uses it during the day. So it's like the opportunities, I think, are certainly there to have that become more than just those two reasons.
I would like to encourage, I'm jumping in, I just asked now if I could just jump in. I'd like us to see if that board, I'd like to see us make it more available to our neighborhood associations. And make it reasonably priced for them, because I think that's a big, I'd like to see that. And I know, like in my own neighborhood, it's very difficult for us to find our neighborhood association. One of our things that we run into is we don't have space, or we find space and people offer to us, but we can't afford it. It's like, we can't, you know, so I'd like us to consider that too, as a possibility, is, you know, opening up for more our neighborhood associations. Sorry.
Yeah, and PTA as well. Like I know
Oh, yeah.
PTA uses the space here currently for some of their meetings. So I think that's something else that it's important to mention, that we're kind of talking about it as the boardroom, but I think it might get more space or more use, I should say, from the community when it's part of the community recreation center. Versus this space, which maybe sits vacant a lot of time. We pay good money for it to be vacant. But I think that having it as part of that recreation space, then we can have more people in there and more people utilizing it. So I just wanted to make that point. That it's not specifically being done just because of the board, but there's going to be a lot more uses that can be put into that space. What are the estimated increased costs for you once this building is up and running, especially with the pool? What are you seeing? Have you projected any annual costs for your department moving forward?
Yeah, so we know obviously, because we have the current rec center costs of staffing, utilities, and so now we're doing, you know, comparables in terms of square footage. Yeah, when we add the fitness center and a pool, yeah, that's gonna add additional operational costs, especially on the pool side. So we haven't gotten that far yet, because we guess we really don't have a definitive answer that that's the direction we're going, so we didn't want to get too far out ahead of ourselves. But in terms of just the current phase 0 and phase 1 footprint, very comparable to our current rec center, and same kind of staffing structure that we're planning in terms of you know, custodial, cleaning, support staff.
One of the hard parts to dive a bit deeper into your question is, what are the utility costs on the building once it's upgraded?
Mhm.
You know, compare it to currently what it is. Well, over 2/3 of the building is 80 years old. So it's challenging to figure out what are utility costs going to be. Nothing's energy efficient there, things like that. The other piece is that our neighbors that have run fitness centers out of these, you know, a Shorewood, a Greenfield, things like that. From my conversations with the business directors in those districts, they those operations after a few years are revenue generators because community members start to buy in because it's a much more affordable option for them.
Mhm.
So the question is how long, how much, things like that we'll have to flush through. So that's a good question, but I think it's like to be determined at this point. So.
Uh, The proposal from the city regarding the street has me slightly concerned. Only because, well, for a few reasons. Number one, that will change that neighborhood if that street is a through street. Right now it's pretty quiet, you don't have that wall of building prevents a lot of Highway 100 traffic noise from coming through. If you open up the street, obviously, number one, that's gone. Number two, you're gonna have people that going up and down there, which creates a busier area there than we have currently. And number three, we now have less property that we can sell because a decent chunk of that chunk is now a street. So do you know, like, is this like something that's just very high level conversations at this point as far as making Madison a through street?
Yeah.
Is this something that is going to be contingent upon us rezoning, saying that we're going to donate basically part of our lot of property as a
Yeah, I'll make a comment first, maybe Shelley, and then you absolutely weigh in as well. Didn't mean to, so the information that I was referencing from the city was literally email correspondence, Noah.
Okay.
So I think from the city's perspective, it's still very preliminary. We haven't had formal dialogues about the size of the street. What does that mean for entrances from public right of way to the either existing or proposed rec center or existing prior lane, proposed rec center. So I think from our seat, very much a preliminary conversation. So I think it would be important for the board to stay very well connected. I know you are, but to maintain communication and maintain your connection with city staff as they either continue to consider that or maybe revise their considerations based on some of the things that you were talking about, Noah.
Yeah, and I mean, it was just that, an email that it was, oh, hey, this idea sort of came up, and I think that transpired after we presented information at Common Council, because there's other departments, so it starts at the engineering department went to, economic development, just kind of saying, oh, hey, could this. So there's no proposal, nothing formal, nothing. I think they'd have a lot of work to do on their end to even, take that up as consideration.
And on top of it, us owning the property.
Yeah.
That's like on top of all that. So certainly if it got actual support and actual proposal, we'd have to like work with you and our attorney and figure out how that would go. So.
And this is me speaking very much from a personal seat. I think it is extremely unlikely that right-of-way extension would be considered with the current parcel. I think you would have to consider the acquisition or joining of additional parcels south of current lane towards Greenfield Avenue. Because, right, we talked about, so the yellow box on the aerial, the gray box on the floor plans is 1.2 acres, right? That we've identified that we don't have a specific use for the rec department from current lane. Minus the right of way, you're talking about what, half an acre of a parcel. I think it's just not attractive to a developer or a commercial entity at that point. So I think the city would realize that. The city likely does realize that.
Okay.
And so it'd be, I think, a lot more conversations, a lot more future dialogue.
Okay. All right. Folks, I feel somewhat better. That was my concern. It's like we're cutting the thing in half.
Yeah.
And then who's gonna go in there? Yeah, maybe you could fit a shipping container in there now, but that's about it. So
With 20 feet setbacks on every side.
it's not back on the tax rolls anymore. So like it kind of defeats some of the purposes of putting this in. And looking at it too, I could see some possible creative structuring where we might maintain some of that. And, so we have that space up there, the green space there, but maybe we have a green space down here too that could be useful for something in relation to the recreation center or classes. Because if you're looking at commercially, you're focused on Highway 100. And so the back part of it is maybe parking for your staff or something like that, but isn't a huge, like you're not marketing to the back part of that part of the building. So if we maintain, a strip that maybe is level with the back of the proposed properties there, that would be green or something, just something to think about. So I think it would require us to partition it again, and there'd be more votes involved in doing that. But that's another thing I was thinking of. If the road's there, there's obviously no way that we could be able to do that. We're not gonna cross the street for a little corner of grass. So, all right. So, would you like board members to be at some of these meetings that are coming up? Do you think that is likely to show support to the common council for this?
Yeah, I don't know that it's necessarily a plan commission. I think we got real good support. I will say there has been, and the city did raise a question, that, and I guess, Aaron and I kind of are having a conversation that I not really sure it's my place to answer to, but they're anticipating that there may be questions of why is the district just not selling the property?
Okay.
So I don't know, I think it was sent a strong message when Ms. Steele and Mr. Becker were at Common Council. Even there wasn't a whole lot of, feedback or pushback. So I'll leave it up to the board, but that, just so that question may come up. And if no one's there, that's, I think, would be appropriate to answer it, I'll pass on answering that question.
Okay.
And defer them to contact, Superintendent and Dr. Robinson and or.
They have, I've responded to that question, so.
So when is it, the 20?
The 17th,
Yeah, it'd be the 17th, October
Yeah.
17th.
when it actually goes to the common council.
Next, that would be public hearing on that date, preceded by the agenda item with the common council.
Okay. Very good. Yeah. All right. Any other questions or comments regarding this proposal? Jeff is good. All right. Well, I'm excited to see as we move forward to phase 0 and phase 1.
As they have a West Side, Westallian, I'm very excited to see this keep going.
If you have feedback or other things or questions, just let Shelley know, and her committee can take those up.
Yeah.
We can
And if
certainly-
anyone in the public who might watch this later or is watching this now has any questions, please reach out to us. And if we don't know the answers to them, we'll be sure to find the answers and let you know. So,
But very excited and appreciate your support and look forward to kind of the next step. So.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you for your work on this.
Thank you.
Wait,
So I believe Common Council starts at 7. Mr. Turner, am I right? 7? Thank you.
Public hearing, we don't have a confirmed date from the city for that, but we can keep everyone informed.
Okay. Great, thank you.
all right. So at this point, we reached the end of our normal board meeting, and we would be adjourning and going into committee of a whole. The question I have for the board is, do we want to take a 5-minute break before we do that, or do you want to roll right into committee of the to doing that process and do our poll work?
I say roll into.
Okay, so I would look for a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Moved in, seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Jeff's thumbs up, opposed. All right, we adjourn. And then I need a motion and a second to reconvene as a committee of the whole.
Move to reconvene as committee of the whole.
Second.
And then we need to do a roll call for that. If you would, Suzanne.
Yes, sir. And I will start once again with Mr. Sickich, who is.
Yes. Did you hear me?
Used. Mr. Burns,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee. Yes, sorry. Mrs. Carr.
Yes.
Mr. Becker,
Yes.
Mr. Keller,
Yes.
Ms. Steele, yes, President Lee.
Yes. All right, so we have our 12.2 approved updated board policies 2260.01, 2266, and 5517. Dr. Robinson, if you have any preamble?
I do. So with the update, the organizational structure that became effective in 23-24, we needed to update specifically compliance officers as it pertains to certain policies. So and these policies are specifically targeting conduct of students as well as teachers when there's who do you report it to? And who responds to it. And so with the addition of several positions, we wanted to make sure that we had those things updated. So the public as well as students and parents would know who to call and to report issues to, and who would be responsible for responding and addressing any issues. So specifically, just to kind of bring a little context, it just norms and updates the names of those compliance officers that those issues are reporting.
And we have access to those documents. Board members have any questions regarding these updated policies?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any last minute discussion? All those in favor? Aye. It's just like it says aye. Opposed? All right, passes. And then we'll move to 12.3, approve our new 2023 Wisconsin General Record Schedule for public school districts. Dr. Robinson and I don't know, Aaron, I don't know who's reading this one.
So on March 20th, 2023, the Wisconsin Public Records Board approved the new Wisconsin Public School District and Related Records General Records Schedule. And so in an effort to ensure that we are in compliance with what the state of Wisconsin, and we do not have our own local policies concerning the control of records, mainly the destruction of records and how long the period of time that you're to hold on. I think this became a conversation specifically with consolidation. How long do we hold on to documents? Kind of depends on, what does a policy say? So we realized that there were some gaps according to how that conversation went as we were consolidating schools. To avoid any gaps or any lapses in policies, we are just simply going to follow what the state of Wisconsin has prescribed for us to follow. And we're just asking you guys to put that in record through action tonight.
Question on that piece. Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any last minute discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Jeff is a thumbs up. Opposed? All right, that passes. And with that, I would look for a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn. Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.